Rush Limbaugh, earlier today, or it might even been yesterday on his show, was talking about how the rich are superior and you're just a lazy asshole. I mean, a typical Rush Limbaugh rant. But this time I jotted down some of his nuggets of wisdom to share with you guys so we can all get a nice little chuckle out of this. Media Matters did a story on this also. So first of all, he said, quote, "The rich are under assault." The rich are under assault? Okay. In 5 words, he already managed to say something 100% incorrect. Like we talk about every day on the show, it's actually the rich and the corporations who have bought the politicians and who rig the tax code in their favor, who rig the government policies in their favor, which is why Mitt Romney was paying 14% in $20 million made when somebody who makes $60,000, $70,000 a year, they pay 20% in taxes. How is it that a multimillionaire whose money makes money, he just sits on his couch all day, how is it that guy pays a lower tax rate than somebody actually laboring for a living? You know, an accountant or a physical therapist or a construction worker or anybody really, anybody who does any regular job. How does that make sense? Because they bought the government. So the rich are not under assault. They have hijacked our political system, which is why a majority of the American people, 80% of us want a minimum wage increase. We didn't get it. 60% want to raise taxes on the rich. We didn't get it. Wanted to raise on $250,000 and above. We didn't get it. 60% don't want to cut Medicaid, Social Security, and Medicare. What are the politicians debating right now? Cutting those programs, even though the tremendous majority don't want it. 91% want a universal background check. Didn't get it. But what Rush Limbaugh wants you to do is feel sorry for David Koch and Sheldon Adelson, the multi-billionaires, but don't feel bad for the homeless guy. Or don't feel bad for the over 10 million working poor people who can work a full-time job but not make enough money to survive. They can't pay the rent and put food in their stomach and their kids' stomachs. Even though they're not lazy, they're not parasites, they're not moochers. They have a job, but they can't survive. They don't make enough money to survive. Yeah, don't feel bad for that guy. That guy's the lazy asshole. I mean, spare me, man. He says, quote, "The middle class and the poor, a greater percentage of their assets comes from inheritance than from working." That may be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I've been saying that a lot recently. But we do cover a lot of dumb things on the show, so it's rather appropriate almost every time I mention it. There's a lot of dumb things we cover. But you're telling me that the poor and the middle class have a higher percentage of their assets from inheritance than the rich? I do believe 100% of Paris Hilton's money came from her grandpapa. I do believe there are a lot of people like that in the country. I mean, I've met them personally in my life. I won't say their names on air, but friends, a friend of a friend who, you know, it's the father, the grandfather that was a CEO or worked on Wall Street or was this big-time lawyer. And they do nothing. They sit on their ass all day and they're just waiting to collect their inheritance later on. But yes, it's the poor and the middle class who actually have to wake up really early and go to work, come home late, and try to take care of all these different things. They are the lazy assholes. He says, quote, "The rich will not speak up for themselves. They won't defend themselves. But rich America happens to be working America." And there you have it. Therein lies Rush Limbaugh's ideology in a nutshell. Every single rich person is hardworking, started at the bottom, got to the top, put their nose to the grindstone, work 16-hour days. That's his mindset. The United States of America is a meritocracy. The harder you work, the further you go. But that is so obvious and demonstrably untrue that it's comical that he really believes it. Because we've all seen it in our own lives. Some of the hardest working people I know make like 30 grand a year. Work 2 jobs, make 30 grand a year, will never get, promoted. And a lot of that, sometimes it has to do with racial reasons. Sometimes it has to do with sexism. Sometimes it has to do with the boss just doesn't like you. Or sometimes you do so good, you're so good at your job that they want to keep you at that job because you do it better than anybody else. Even though it doesn't pay much and you would like to get a promotion. We've all seen nepotism happen. Where, you know, the nephew of the friend of the boss who got a C in college and only knows how to do keg stands, that guy gets the job over the qualified person. We see that all the time. We see the rich people with the inheritance who sat on their ass their whole lives, but they end up doing well economically simply because of they're a member of the Lucky Sperm Club. Okay? So it's nonsense. It's garbage. We know the United States is not a meritocracy. And even if everybody did work as hard as they possibly could, which most people do, we're always going to need people to do the low-wage jobs. So what do you want, Rush? You want to force people to do these low-wage jobs and still not pay them enough to survive? So you're in favor of wage slavery. That's what you're in favor of. Because you're an idiot. You're a moron. And you're totally incapable of being objective, thinking outside the box, and sympathizing and empathizing with people. And then also, I saved this last little nugget here as well. The country would be far better off if more people actually lived like the way the top 20% do. If they actually worked like the top 20% do. So if you're middle class, if you're poor, you're a lazy asshole. That's the bottom line. Now, even mathematics debunks Rush Limbaugh. How can I say that? Well, what's the unemployment rate today? 7.3%. Okay, and of that 7.3% that are unemployed, the majority of them are genuinely looking for a job and trying to get back up on their feet. The overwhelming majority of them, okay? But even if you take the so-called real unemployment rate, which is the higher one, it's 11.5% roughly. So 11.5% of people, will be fair to Rush Limbaugh, say 11.5% of people don't have a job, maybe 6% of them or 7% of them don't want a job, which isn't even true. It's probably about 1%. But there you go. There you have it. Even if I'm overly kind to Rush Limbaugh, over 90% of the American people are either working or they want to work. So to say, oh, poor middle class or lazy, only the top 20% work hard. That's just so irrational that it blows your mind.